Welcome back to the BOSStimator. Ryan Frick, personal trainer. This is your second tutorial of why you need the BOSStimator over a spreadsheet type of estimating platform. The first tutorial showed you what made a spreadsheet application great or good, and how the BOSStimator made it even better than they're great. So this one's going to show you Excel can do it, but not so good, and the BOSStimator definitely takes care of all of those issues. I developed this BOSStimating system with the knowledge of Excel because I've programmed into it for many years until I developed this system out. So let's get right into it. One of the issues that you will always have a problem within an Excel spreadsheet, depending upon how you created it, I'm going to go into a project, is that it limits the ability of multiple people working on the same estimate at the same time. There is a way of doing it. You just got different people working on different segments, and then you cut and paste and you bring it all together into one thing, and then hopefully you got everything. So that is the workaround for it. The BOSStimator looks at it from a little different. It allows different people to work, if you want, on the same estimate at the same time, no questions asked. Or work on different components, and that's what the difference between an estimate and a component. Components are basically different segments within the BOSStimator. So let's say, for example, you're building a house. You may have somebody working on the bedrooms, one person working on the kitchen, working on the bathrooms, working on exterior foundation. So it's limitless again. You tell me how many components there are, and you build each estimator is going to work on it, so you create a component for that portion of the estimate. It goes even further. Let's say if you're working on a commercial building and you have a commercial building that has the same room called A5 on 7 different floors, 12 different times in a different building. You build the matrix in any fashion that you want. But let's get into what the matrix looks like. So it's simple as this. You just assign it, you build it out, you say, okay, you create the individual matrix by saying how many of those individual rooms are in each floor, which in each area, each floor, each building. You create a matrix of the different components that you actually have different estimators working on, and then you just create the matrix, and the BOSStimator will combine them all together based upon the quantities of those that you have established within the matrix and creates it into one estimate. Another good thing about that is when you're working on an estimate, as an estimator, I don't want everybody working on my estimate, because how do I know what they're changing, their unit rates or their conversion factors? So the BOSStimator locks people out. If you are not the estimator, you don't have authority to go in and make changes to that estimate. Only the estimator does, and also the administrator for the overall platform. So the administrator could come in and reassign it to somebody else, and then they could do it. But it's better to keep them locked out depending upon who the estimator is. So you have these different components that different people would make, and as simple as I'm making a new component, and it's a new component, you can call it bathroom or whatever. You know, it doesn't really matter what the component is. I'm just going to go ahead and add it, and now I just added an estimate called bathroom for that project. To go back to the project, I'm going to press refresh, and now that's a component. So you may have bathrooms, so on and so forth, like we talked about. But it's assigned to me because I'm the estimator. Now, next person would log in. They're logging in as John Doe or whoever they may be. So you may have this estimate done by me, another estimate done by so on and so forth. I can't go into theirs either, so it's locked depending upon the estimator. Excel spreadsheets can't really do that. You can hide and lock fields and stuff like that, but it doesn't have the ability unless you spend a lot of time modifying it. This is built in, so it's a simple way of estimating each person accordingly. Okay, let's go ahead and get into one of the other estimates that we've already done, and get back into here, and let's look at this. So let's say, for example, you're working in a spreadsheet and you created a template that you know what, I'd like to use this over and over again on future estimates. But with an Excel format, it's very difficult to do that because you probably made changes to the formulas, and you could do it, but it's a lot more labor intensive. With the BOSStimator, it's simple. Let's go ahead and just create one to show you how simple it is. I'm going to add a task, which a task combines items, which are individual pieces together to perform scopes of work. So you can go in here and say, I'm going to go ahead and make a task for concrete, and it's going to be for whatever. You can, it doesn't matter. I'm not gonna even assign it a secondary category, but I'm gonna say poor, and I'm gonna go ahead and make it place sidewalk 4 foot wide. Okay. You just created a brand new task. It's not a default. It couldn't find it. So you're basically creating a brand new one on the fly. So, well, how do you normally estimate this sidewalk? Well, you usually calculate it by the running foot. Okay, so every running foot of that tells you what it is. Or you may want to say it's by 4 inches deep. Just that way we're more cleared. Okay, so that's that fast. The parameter, what that is that if you digitize a set of prints, it actually will, as you're digitizing, it will link it together depending upon what factor it is on your parameter. So this is done by the length. But after you do it, and if you digitize it and say, hey, I'm digitizing this sidewalk, it will go on the digitized print, take a snapshot of it, save that so you can always go back and take a look at it, and then come back into here and we'll link it that value for the running foot depending upon the length that you digitize. You didn't do anything except for digitize it. Okay, well, let's go ahead and add some things to it. Okay, for concrete this way here, you know what, there are some things in here that I have used in the past. Okay, I think I got some concrete in here, so I'm going to start typing concrete. Hey, that's what I want. Well, how many cubic yards of concrete are there per running foot of this? So I'm going to press, go ahead and get into there and just take a, work on that conversion factor. So I'm going to double click on the conversion, on the conversion factor. I pressed on the units, apologize for that. Okay, so it's saying how many cubic yards per running foot of placing this sidewalk. And that's where you have to be able to come up with that formula. In Excel, you would end up doing it, you can create a formula to do it, or in Access, you can actually use a calculator. We'll pull up a calculator and do the same thing and put the value in there, and it's always going to be saved. Okay, so let's go ahead and just quickly calculate that using the calculator here. And I'm going to pull up the calculator and say, okay, so cubic yards per running foot. So it's 4 foot wide, 4 times 4 inches thick. Fine. Divide that by 12 because it's 4 inches. Divide that, and that'll give you cubic foot. Divide that by 27. That'll tell you how many, what's the cubic yards per running foot. So 0.0493. Okay, I'm going to go, I could copy that and paste it, and I can do that, but it's just easy to remember that. 0.0493. So that tells me I can do about 20 running foot per yard. And you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and make it just, so I did it there, but I'm going to go ahead here and just make it 20. Little waste factor, fine. Okay, so now we got that established in there. The cubic yards was established by what we got to bid it out last time. Let's go ahead and add some laborers. A carpenter. A carpenter can do how many hours per running foot, and it's easier to do it again by the running foot per hour. So he can actually go in there and do this whole thing from top to bottom at 10 linear foot per hour. But that's not just for that. I'm going to go over here and say double. That's just a form. Okay, I can add to it that fast. Are you sure you want to do this? Yes, I've changed the items. I made a new one, basically is what I did. So I can come back into here, labor, carpenter, carpenter again. And then this one is going to be place and finish. Yes, I'm basically saying, hey, you're making a new item. I'm making it on the fly. It doesn't matter. It's just letting you know that that's what you're doing. You can add that to your default list later on without having any issues whatsoever. And on this one, we're going to say it's 5. Close. Okay, fine. We just created this, and we're good to go. Now that we've done it, let's say, you know what, I'd like to use that on every estimate from here on out, because that's a good task. That's a good little feature. No problem. From now on, that fast, on every estimate, it is automatically updated, so you can use that on every estimate from here on out. Try to do that on an Excel spreadsheet. And it's that simple. So I just created it, added it, and now it's a default from ever and ever. I'm going to go ahead and close that, and now it's in there. How do I know it's in there? Well, let's just go ahead and see if it's there. I'll add a new one. I think we called it place sidewalk. There it is. We just created it, pulled it up, used all that conversion factor and history, and we can go in here and say, you know what, but for this individual one, it's different. I can't produce the same amount. I can only do, let's go ahead and say, instead of placing and finishing out this because it's at a different location, I'm only able to do 2.5 running foot per hour. That's fine. You just altered the conversion factor for this individual task with just for that one job. It's fine. It'll remember it. Now the big thing is, it was that quick. Excel, you'd have to save it as template each time and then copy and paste. So you can see that the BOSStimator goes one step beyond that. And that was just the task. Assemblies add tasks together to perform additional larger scopes of work. So like, for example, an assembly for 4-inch slab on grade tailgated is backfill, concrete finish, excavate, rebar mesh, and termite topsoil. And those are all tasks already combined together. So you can create new assemblies on the fly just as easy as you did the task, or new packages, groups, so on and so forth. It's limitless. So it has so much power than what an Excel spreadsheet does. Excel spreadsheet can't touch base with it. Another good thing about it, if you were using a spreadsheet application, one of the things that you know of, that you have the ability to make changes to pricing. Well, that's great. BOSStimator takes it even one step further. You have to remember where all unless you developed the spreadsheet in such a way that you have all your materials and your individual items located on one sheet where you can adjust it and it links back, you have to do each one of them individually. You don't have to in the BOSStimator. In the BOSStimator, you can come right in here and say, okay, I need to adjust the pricing for this, let's say 2x4 16-footer. And right there it is. That price is not $6.85. It is $6.25. Computer says, hey, you're making changes to a unit rate, and that was a standard. Do you want to lock it? Because maybe you don't want it. You just want to lock that price just for this one job and just for this one item. If you do, then press yes. And what happens is it locked, and now you're not even able to go in there and make any more price adjustments. If you unlock it, now you can get back in there and make a price adjustments again. But if I adjust it and say, you know what, it's $6.35, and I say, no, I don't want to lock it, look what else happens. And it says, okay, well, since you're not locking it, you're allowing it to update on this estimate, do you want me to go ahead and make this, as you notice over here, all the other pricings on the entire job was updated for that price too. So by just doing that, it went through the entire project, found every one that has a 2x4 16-footer, and updated the pricing to $6.35 without you even asking the question. But since you did it, the computer says, well, since you did it on this estimate, do you want to make it standard throughout as a default price throughout? If you press yes, which I just did, right now, anytime in the future, if you ever have a 2x4 16-footer that's going to be used, that price is going to come up $6.35. It was that fast. And to boot, if you're connected to a network, you just updated the default pricing. Guy 3 computers down, they're doing an estimate. It'll come up the next time he opens his computer, says, hey, we got new updated pricing. Do you want to update your estimate for this new price? And they didn't even know you were doing it. But they have the ability to go through and say, yeah, I don't want to use these items and update these prices. They have the ability to do it on their individual estimate. You don't, they do. So you can adjust the pricing that quick. You can't do that in Excel or in a spreadsheet. You have to agree. If, let's say, for example, it goes one step further. If you bid these projects out and you can create a bid that groups them together and bid it out to half dozen different people, and you get a price back, it'll update the pricing based upon their bids as well. Try to do that on an Excel spreadsheet. You don't even have to do anything except for say, I've received a bid, and yes, I'm choosing this bid supplier, and it pulls it up. And it even does more than that. You got to watch the tutorials for bidding. It'll actually say, hey, you want to combine them together, get the average price, use the lowest combined of all the suppliers, your choice. It does all that behind the scene, and even checks it to make sure that their pricing is legit and compares it apples and apples. You got to watch the videos for that. It's too long to even start to explain all that. But that's another great feature that the BOSStimator has that Excel cannot touch. You could do it, but it's a lot more cumbersome in an Excel spreadsheet. So let's say one of the things in an Excel spreadsheet in the BOSStimator is add-ons. Add-ons, what we consider things that are added to the project that maybe don't have really anything to do with individual work. We consider that kind of stuff overhead profit, taxes, drive time, efficiencies, whatever you want. I went into the estimate summary, and as you notice down here, if you look at 123,815, that's the same as 123,815 here, so those two matches, that's the raw cost, and these are the add-ons that we have in this estimate. I can go to the add-ons to see what I have. So I have in there, I have overhead and profit that I want to make maximum 10% on, but I only want it on labor at 10, material 8, sub. You know what? I want to make 6% on subs. And I don't want anything on equipment, and I want 8% there. Fine, you can adjust it. I don't want any hidden fees. I deleted it. It's no longer in there. Well, maybe I do. I want to add a hidden fee. You can have as many things you want to. And I want to make a hidden fee of $5,000, and I want to make it so no one else can see it. So what the computer will do, it'll actually go through every one of your unit rates depending upon the percentage of the overall cost and increase the unit rates in such a way that it increases the overall price by $5,000. Try to do that on an Excel spreadsheet. Limitless how many you can have here. So I'm going to go ahead and press close. It does the calculations, pulls it all back up, finds out what's distributed, finds the percentages, marks it up, and now that when you do a print out, it does that amount. That fast, that quick, that easy. It's limitless what you can do. You can also assign these things to, when you're doing an estimate, to different areas. You can the default, right now we don't have any defaults. You can either click here or you can click there. And when you're estimating, you can assign them to floors, areas, options, drawings, so on and so forth. Then once you have them in here, you can just as easy go in and filter it by whichever category, whichever area, whichever job, whatever you want. You have the ability to filter that information or print it out in that same fashion, which you can't do in Excel. Let's do a quick experiment on that. I only want to see those things that contain the letter EA. Well, there they are. Try to figure out how to do that on an Excel spreadsheet. I got $8,700. I got 117 hours to do those things with EA. Well, EA with only with the unit rate of only square footages. You have complete control. You cannot do that on an Excel spreadsheet. Filter it out, determine the cost that fast. The printing ability is exactly the same detail as this. So that's another good thing. Usually in an Excel spreadsheet, though, you can probably produce an estimate pretty quick. Maybe not. But the BOSStimator can produce it quicker. Watch the tutorial of why you need the BOSStimator so you can understand how fast it actually creates it. One of the things that makes different, though, especially when you're starting in a new system, is I don't know how to do anything into this. If you go on any page in the BOSStimator and you select anything in there, that button changes. If I go to groups, it changes. Tasks, it changes. Great. What does that mean? You click on that button and it will pull up your estimate task quick start, a tutorial on how to utilize and what the tasks are and the functions behind it. Every location it has that. So you can get up and running, and you can go back and watch it as many times, more in-depth videos on the help. If you ever have any problems, always feel free to call the boss. We want you to be successful, and watch why the boss is great and Excel stinks.